Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Death, the podcast that isn't afraid to talk about death and the people who work with the deceased and their relatives. We are your hosts. I am Mark. I'm a forensic radiographer and a lecturer in forensic radiography. And with me today is
I'm Lindsay. I'm a diagnostic radiographer and a very experienced forensic radiographer. Hi.
Lindsay. Who do we have with us today?
Well, we have Jim Elmsley today. Hi, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm all good, thank you very much.
And where are you? I think you're in a caravan somewhere. Is that right?
I am. I'm at a place called Trinity Park, which is just outside Ipswich, with Dogs in Need agility show. So it's all the proceeds of this particular show go to the Dogs in Need charity. So it's very commendable. But it's a very big agility show, and it's a big one on the calendar in the year.
And I believe that you're a bit of a prize winner today. So we're very, very chuffed to have a prize winning agility dog person and someone with a very interesting job and background. Also, we've seemed to be in East Anglia for our podcast today. And as a Suffolk girl, I'm very supportive of that. So I just want to tell our listeners a little bit about you. And you Jim Elmsley is an award-winning founder of the ELM Legal Services, and that's a Bristol-based estate planning firm now celebrating 25 years. Well done. And you've got over 45,000 clients, and you're generating more than 1 million annually. And you've built ELM into a leading name in will writing and probate. And you're known for making estate planning clear, accessible, and stress free for families across the UK, which is a very rare thing to be able to do. So we're really keen to hear about how you can help people, the listeners and Anubix people, about this particular subject. And then also, interestingly, you're quite a different person. You were raised in care and you were diagnosed with ADHD later in life. And you grew the business really from a back bedroom. Wow. A self-made man, hey, to thriving operation across 2 offices, and you've earned many, many awards, which I'm not going to read out because I think it'd be nice to actually hear from you. So I'm going to go to the first question, which really encapsulates that. Is tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how did you get into being a specialist in estate planning and be in the position you are now? And tell us a little bit about what is estate planning.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. It was very kind. My background is that well, I was diagnosed with ADHD later in life, but that basically gave a green light to me personally because it answered a lot of questions as to what happened in my early years in education because I was in and out of schools, and then I ended up in care. And then getting that diagnosis basically just said to me, right, okay, well, that explains that.
Mm.
Um, in regards to getting into estate planning, well, having no formal education, I went off traveling for quite a while for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years when I was 17, and came back when I was in my 20s, and then went off again to America traveling. And then when I came back, I thought to myself, I really do need to do something. So I looked about for something to get into, and the government were doing something called access to law, which was basically where they were saying for people that wanted to get into a particular profession but didn't have the appropriate qualifications, you could
Mm.
do this particular course, and then that would be a kind of a ticket to university. So I did the access course, I passed. I went to the University of the West of England, and 4 years later, I came out with a law degree. But
Wow.
in the midst of all of that, having a law degree and no other formal qualifications, I was doing a lot of work in regards to marketing.
Mhm.
So a lot of stuff on the phones, doing door to door. And then when I completed my law degree, I looked around and thought to myself, right, okay, what am I going to do now? So I kind of fell into will writing because there was somebody within Western Supermare that were looking for people. And I was a little bit older, so I went down to work with them, and they were my mentors really,
Mm.
and showed me all of the ropes and whatnot. And then I just set up on my own, and out of my back bedroom in a place called Fishponds in Bristol.
I know fish ponds.
Yeah, very, very nice place. And I started out on myself, and I was on my own, and I converted my house into an office basically. So we had lots of people coming and going, and And then we got our first offices at 1A Victoria Park in Fish Ponds. Then we had other offices in Staple Hill, and then I went and amalgamated everything into another office, which was in Kingsland House. And then we bought the offices that we're in currently, which is actually going full circle and coming back to Fish Ponds, so on Fish Ponds Road.
Back
So,
to the future sort of thing. And what is estate planning?
well, estate planning in itself is wills, trust, estate, and probate. So it's thinking about the inevitable, because there's only two things in life that are absolutely certain, that's death and taxes. So you need to plan for, the inevitable time when, you're going to pop off the mortal coil. And unfortunately, within the United Kingdom, 7 out of 10 people don't have a valid last will and testament in place, or they may have one in place, but it's not up to date. So, people do it and then stick it in a drawer and then forget about it. And then, obviously, when the time comes, people look at it and they think that was your last wishes. So, they abide by it. And a lot of people, the reason that they don't actually get round to doing it at all is because they think, well, they'll do it tomorrow. And sometimes tomorrow never arrives.
Is it true that people can write their wishes on the back of an envelope and that has a legal standing, or is that just an urban myth?
Oh, you can do that. As long as it abides by what's known as the formalities as set out in the 1837 Act. Yes, we still run to the 1837 Act of
Hmm.
Wills, and as long as it's been signed and witnessed correctly, then that will be a valid will. So you can write it on toilet paper, cigarette packets. There's been a number of things which have been accepted into the probate office as valid documents.
So a sub question to that. So you can write it on the back of an envelope or whatever, but it's all about the challenges, isn't it? So I've written all my stuff on the back of an envelope, but it's who's going to challenge it in my family life, or
Yes.
that kind of thing. I think that's probably want to tease out some of that's where later on in the questions where the problems arise when there is a huge battle which can go on for
There's
years.
there's a yeah, I mean, there's a thing called contentious probate, which is basically where things become contentious and people aren't happy with what they've been left, or they believe that the person creating the will didn't have the capacity to make that particular document, or they were coerced, and leaving something to somebody and they should have been left to somebody else. It's a huge growth area at the moment, contentious probate. Uh,
Wow, with
s-
money.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see very tight families that haven't, written a will,
Yeah.
and then something happens, and you can't really go back to the parents and ask, "Did you mean this or did you mean that?" Because they're 6 foot under, and it's very difficult in those particular situations. And the other thing is, in sort of families, you've got dominant parties, and then you've also got the parents who are the police, and they police their children, and when they're not
Yes.
there, then it's kind of it's a scrap for what's left. I
Yeah.
tell clients when I sit with them, I say, look, if this, oh, then they wouldn't do this, or they wouldn't do that, or they wouldn't do. I say, right, okay, I'm going to come into your house and I'm going to pop £60,000 in cash in a bag on your kitchen table, and then your children have to distribute it evenly. Do you think they're going to do that? Oh, yes, I would tell them. No,
Mm,
you can't say anything because you're not going to be here.
mm,
So, what do you think your kids are going to do?
mm. Well, Jim, I used to be the safeguarding adults and learning disability lead at King's, and I saw everything. I did the best interest and MCAs, and everything. I saw families fall apart viciously. So yeah, nothing like money and property to divide the most sensible people up. Um, I'm just aware that I've extended question one, so I'm going to ask you. I'm going to go to question three now because I think we've covered an awful lot in question one. What are the most difficult challenges? What have they been? And How do you reach the people that need you?
It's very, very difficult. Marketing in this particular area has to be done very sensitively,
Mm.
obviously because of the subject matter. I mean, we've got radio adverts that run within the Bristol area on Heart, and we use a little bit of humour with that. So we've teamed up with a lady called Sue Pollard. I don't know whether you remember her
Oh
from
yeah,
Heidi
I know.
High.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I do there's an advert sections that we do. So it's just humor, and we try to make it humorous and try to get that conversation going. The other thing that I do is we do a lot of stuff with social platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. I do a lot of videos on TikTok. Got got quite a few followers on that.
Because there's not a lot out in the media. Joan Bakewell did a brilliant thing. You can still hear it on Radio 4, but generally there is not. It's not popular because the Treasury would be losing money if they made it an efficient information service about how to make your will. I think you'll agree with that.
Well, a lot of the stuff will go to the Crown if it's not actually collected.
Yes.
So there is an incentive, if you like,
Yes.
to organise that.
Yeah, indeed. Jim, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Mark now, who's going to ask you a few more questions as well. But thank you. Very interesting.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lindsay, and thank you, Jim. Yeah, that's been a really interesting conversation. I just wondered, you must meet a lot of people, some of whom are bereaved, and some of whom perhaps are facing, a partner who's got a long-term illness, or maybe themselves have got a long-term illness. How do you deal with the emotional side that your work brings?
Personally, myself, I try to show empathy. So it's trying to deal with those particular situations can be tricky, but you just got to uh, reflect, if you like, with the particular individuals that you're dealing with, especially if they've been diagnosed, or and try and get them to think, about their loved ones, their closest ones, that what would happen, if they do, when the inevitable happens, that they're going to be left with a lot of paperwork to deal with, and they don't really want to make it worse by trying to have to second guess.
Yeah, it's getting people to face that, isn't it, and understand, really what the consequences are if they don't deal with it now, which must be very difficult. Can you think of a situation like that, or maybe another one that's been difficult to deal with that stayed with you, and why that is
Absolutely.
particularly?
Yeah. We had a situation where there was a same-sex couple, and unfortunately, they decided that they weren't going to implement wills, and they decided they weren't going
Hmm.
to do that, which left them extremely vulnerable. Now, one of them, unfortunately, then passed away rather suddenly whilst we were in discussions.
Mm.
Um, and the house that they were both living in was actually in the deceased name entirely.
Oh, oh, right.
So
Oh
normally that
dear.
wouldn't cause too much of an issue, I mean, if
Mm.
everybody was on board. But there were a same-sex
Mm.
couple, and that particular individual, the person that had deceased, their family had disowned him because of his preferences. So they
Mm.
didn't want anything to do with his long-term partner. Didn't want
Mm.
anything to do with the probate, or just
Yeah.
basically they waited for to get all the paperwork through, and then they unfortunately then threw
Mm.
the long-term partner out of the house. So shocking, really, and there's
Yeah,
nothing
really.
that can be done.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a sort of salutary lesson, isn't it, for those of us who, like you said, sort of keep putting it off until tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
very difficult situation to deal with.
there's a lot of situations that, and sideways disinheritance is another one where people can be disinherited either maliciously or unintentionally, where you've got blended families,
Mm.
and you've got one that will they'll come together. So there'll be two families that will come together, and then they won't make the wills, and subsequently one of them dies.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you've got the survivor, and then they remarry, and then they make a new
Right.
will with a new partner, and then everything that came from the original partner gets
Mm.
left to the other one. It's
Crumbs.
yeah,
Yeah, that must be really complicated to unpick.
it,
That's
it can be
yeah,
a complicated,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Wow. Lindsay, can I hand back to you?
Yeah, I was just going to follow on from that a bit. So, when I was teaching about safeguarding for years, I'd have the what do you call it, the induction, corporate induction, and I'd get to the bit about wills, and I'd say, and there'd be a room full of 50 people, how many of you have made a will? A maximum of 2 hands would go up.
Hmm.
And then my buzz line, and I'm not giving you this buzz line, was making a will does not make you die quicker. And then
Absolutely.
I'd ask them why they didn't. Oh no, we can't talk about, because we do not. Our culture, generally speaking, we do not talk about death. And I suppose I'm thinking, what is your how do you, if you could sum up in a few words, what's your buzz line? What's your tagline to get people to think about making their wishes known and to make a will?
Well, really, at the end of the day, it's peace of mind. You know, it's making that document, just spending some time and allocating it to give yourself peace of mind that, you know, when you go, things are going to be dealt with
Hmm.
appropriately, and your wishes are going to be carried out rather than the government sort of stepping in and turning around and saying, "Oh, it's going to be X, Y, and Z."
Are people
So
put off because of the cost of making a will? Because some wills are very complicated, some wills are very simple.
Um, I think personally, look, I'm a little bit biased. I think all wills are fairly simplistic when you actually boil them down. You know, it's
Mm.
kind of it depends on your objectives. Whether you want the most simple will in life would be everything to each other and then equal amounts to your children.
Mhm.
But even that, you know, then it can become a little bit more complex if you're going to be putting in property trusts or such
Yes.
like. But um, the cost of them, they're relative to the peace of mind that they give, really. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. And could you tell us something unusual about you?
Oh, unusual about me. We've already broached and touched on the fact that I've been diagnosed with this ADHD.
Yes.
Um, I do dog agility, so I traipse around the country in a caravan where I am currently
Mhm.
doing dog agility shows. I've got 7 border collies.
Wow.
So we have to set the caravan up. So we've got some in the caravan and some outside of the caravan. I live in Bristol, so I'm currently up in Ipswich, Trinity Park, and I've been here for 4 days, and we're going back on Sunday. Yeah, so
So, yeah,
in-
that's a very interesting and unusual. It makes you a very interesting character, I have to say, especially the doggies. I mean, I'm a big animal person myself. And just want to ask you finally, last question here. What is the biggest misconception that people have about what you what your work does? What do people get wrong about what you do?
they think they think it's going to be extremely complex and it's going to take a lot of time, and actually it doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, what I say to people is, you know, if they come to me, so it's going to be takes a lot of time, and I've got to think about everything, and I've got to, go and get a big bit of paper and write everything down. I just say, no, you don't need to do that. All you need to do is just think of everything that you own and make it 100%. And then what you need to do is just think about the people that you care about, and then just give them a percentage. And then
Mm,
that makes life a lot easier, because then it's down to the executors who are dealing with the estate after you're gone to work out what that percentage is and what you own. So for you, making the will, it's easy. You've got
mhm,
100% and you've got 4 children, 25% each if you don't have a partner. So
mhm.
it just that makes life a lot easier. And you can then make it easier for the executor by writing down what everything that you own as you go through life. But as we all know, life's very fluid. So make it in a percentage. It just makes it that much easier.
And do you think it's important for people to include their burial or cremation wishes or their special cultural wishes in their wills?
Yes, but it's not legally binding. So this
Ah,
is something which people are not aware of, is that usually a will's read after the
funeral.
ceremony.
Mm,
Yeah. So if you've put in there, "Oh, I want to be buried," and then you've come back from the crematorium, it's a little bit too late.
mm. So
So
there's no legal binding of those wishes. I mean, is there
no.
anything else that is not legally binding that we should be aware of?
If you put something legally binding within a will, that's probably the only thing within a will. You can put a wish in there, but it's not actually legally binding. You can put things attached to the will, things like a letter of wishes, so that you
Mm,
can detail, what's going to happen with everything in regards to your estate. Uh, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the only thing within the will that isn't legally binding is the burial.
And do you ever go to court to defend wills, or is that not what you do?
We have appropriate insurances in place. I mean, every solicitor or legal practice that's worth their salt should have a PI cover in place. So if something happens and we do get a contentious issue, then obviously the insurance would step in. But I can touch wood. I can sit here and say 25 years in, we've never had anything go to court. So, I'm very proud
Yeah.
of that fact.
Yeah, that's a real gold star, that is. And I just want to mention, Age Concern do a life book. I downloaded one myself. Do you also kind of support or advertise people using something like a template like the Age Concern life book?
We do things online. So if people go to our website, which is elm-online.co.uk, they can find a how, why, when book, which is like our on there. So it's one of the things you can download, and it's very informative. Just goes through and gives you indications as to how, why, and when you should actually make this particular document.
Hmm. Hmm. Excellent. Well, that kind of wraps up another episode of Beyond Death, Jim. Thank you so much for talking to us. This is we
It's
haven't
been a
had
pleasure.
anyone talk to us about this kind of subject, and of course, it's key to us as forensic people. The other aspects that come in that touch over our overall work. So, Mark, what have we learnt today? Would you mind doing a little recap?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been really, really interesting talking to you today, Jim. And as you say, Lindsay, we've heard about an aspect that we don't often consider, which is really, really important. And I'd like to summarise today's session up in two phrases, really. We learned firstly from Jim that it's never too late to start. I mean, I think you've done amazing things, Jim, taking yourself off and getting a law degree and then establishing this really successful business and reaching people who, in a sense, don't know they need reaching, but they definitely do. And that brings me to the second phrase, which is it's never too late to start, except when it's too late. And I think that is the problem that we have sometimes with people facing the fact that we are all mortal and we are all day one going to be, every one of us isn't going to be here, and we have to think about planning for the next phase. And the other thing I think was really, really good was that you said you used humor to try and reach people. And so often this is one of those discussions it's quite difficult to have, and yet introducing a bit of humor and bringing having a sort of lighter aspect to it, I think really, really important. And as you say, at the end of the day, it's not really that difficult for the individual. It may cause the executors a few problems, but that's not the problem that the person's going to have when they're not here. So actually, there's no reason why any of us couldn't sit down today and do this. So I think it's really, really interesting talking to you, and thank you very much.
Yep.
Excellent. So,
Thank
whilst
you
this
very much.
concludes today's conversation, remember it's not the end because there is always more beyond death. And if you enjoy our episodes, please follow us and rate our channel. And we're always keen to get some feedback so we can improve any of the service for our listeners. So, thank you so much today. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.